It's the Fellowship of the Geek Show, a weekly podcast about comics, the comic book industry, and other geek pop culture. Music courtesy of Manny the Martyr. And now, on with the show!
Hey everybody, it's the Fellowship of the Geeks podcast. My name is Thomas Chick, and joining me for this episode is Mike Marlowe.
Hey gang.
Liz Newman.
Hello everybody.
And the gentleman listening to the sound of the waves, it's Les Webster.
Yeah, screw that up.
Oh well, I tried.
Hello.
Sorry. How are y'all doing?
I'm tired.
Doing pretty good.
I'm pretty good.
Alrighty, I hope everybody out there is doing okay. So, what's been going on in your corner of the galaxy?
Oh yeah,
that.
Well, I'm still catching up. Oh, my God, my pile is still so huge. I don't know what to do. I finally caught up on my floppies, which is fine because it's probably also time for me to go get more. But that means I got caught up on the most recent one. It was Brothers Dracul. I think that was issue 4. That is, of course, still awesome. And I am, quote unquote, caught up on Real Science Adventures, because that's another fun one. That's it's fun when they do these because the great thing about these, it's the guys who create Atomic Robo, and they just kind of pull some. They're both Brian Clevenger and Scott Wagner are big history buffs. And so they will just sort of brainstorm and find some obscure historical event or even just time period to create a story in. And so this one it's like 11th or 12th century Constantinople. And it's basically, the story it's just a heist story. It's a relatively simple, although of course infinitely complex heist story. And it's a lot of fun, and it seems almost totally random and kind of out of nowhere, and it's just this really fun little story. So, like I said, we'll talk later about how caught up I am on that series, and I am finally starting the comic book Implosion book. I have gotten like 3 pages into it because it's not a comic book, so it's they're huge pages with lots of text on them, so it's going to take a little while to get through it, but it's already starting off interesting, of course.
See, I was right. It has a lot of words.
Oh yeah. Just because it's about comics doesn't mean it's a comic book.
Right. But it is interesting. Very interesting.
Yep.
Cool.
Well, I'm still doing my horror Halloween movie thing, so I've been watching a lot of movies. I've also got caught up on some of my reading, which I know it's probably been talked to death on social media for all the wrong reasons, but I really, really, really enjoyed the Batman Damned. I guess I seem to gravitate towards the Batman stories where he's like broken and just not like the Batman that's in the comics now. So it was I'm really curious to see where this is going to go. And actually, after hearing all the controversy over the Bat-Wang, I had to actually go back and find it because it was like, what? Wait, that was in this book? So, yeah, I'm really enjoying that one. I also started Bully Wars. I think the second one's just coming out. I guess when you guys hear this, it'll already be out. But that one's kind of neat too. If you go into this one thinking I hate Fairyland, you're going to be disappointed. But it's still it's a cute story. I'll put it that way. It's a cute story. Kind of cleaned up from Fairyland, not so much gore, and at least not in the first issue. Scotty can always surprise us, but it's a cute story. And
about
then,
bullies.
Bullies.
Let's keep that in mind.
Well,
but yeah.
Right.
Well, it's kind of funny because the bully turns into being the bullied. If that, the table turned on him, and he's kind of like, what? Which, of course, everyone knows when you hit high school, everything changes. So, the kids he picks on is actually going to help him now. So, I don't know. It might be a cute friendship story.
Aww.
Called Bully Wars.
And it's more than just doing its homework. So.
Yeah. So it's pretty interesting. And then I'm trying to read Zero's Journey. Yeah. I'm having a whole problem with the Magna. Is it Magna? See, I can't even say it.
Manga.
Let alone read it. Well, yeah, and they show you how to read it in the book, which is cool because, once you start reading it, you can do it, but it's kind of something I have to always go and look at again because it's kind of backwards, of course, completely backwards from the way we read normal comics, but it's a pretty cute story. Like I said, if you put that aside, it's a cute story. I don't think I myself would go out and buy any other manga titles, but it was Nightmare Before Christmas, so I had to. Yeah, other than that, like I said, a lot of TV time. A lot of new shows are coming back on. Yay. I watched Supernatural tonight. So, yep. It premiered tonight.
I have a question about the Batman book you were talking about.
Yeah.
The one that's called The Damned.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Are they covering up covers like they did back when Doctor Strange did Damnation?
I don't know if they stayed on the shelves that long.
Well, there's that, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
And of course, we won't even go back to Jason Aaron's book, which was entitled The Goddamned. But anyway, just looking for a little consistency in the world and coming up short.
Yeah. The main thing that irks me on that title, though, is, my son is a big Batman fan. I've talked about him before. But, I didn't even think that he would want, well, he hasn't picked up his comics, and I'm tired of buying them all. But he was like, hey, get me a copy of that. And not even thinking, like I said, I knew there was a comic book with a lot of controversy, but I didn't put the two together. So, reached out, nope, can't do that. They're not even talking about a second printing on it. So you go to Amazon, it's already like $200. It's like, what? What is wrong with this? So.
It's the collector mentality.
It is, but the people who have this comic book now aren't even enjoying it for the kick-ass story that it is. I mean, if the pace continues, I think it's 3 issues or 3 parts. So, I mean, if the pace continues, it's going to be a very good story. I mean, and just when John Constantine showed up within the first 2 pages, it was like, woo! I'm sold. So.
The only problem is, in my opinion, it's bi-monthly. So
yeah,
the first issue came out late September. It's actually going to be in December when the second issue comes out. So it's even longer than that.
Yeah.
And then I think it may be March for the third. So maybe once every 3 months. Man.
People are not used to waiting that long for their books.
No, but
we'll
I think
see.
For a good story, you would. But then you also have people who wait till the trade comes out and they'll just wait till it's collected and read it all then,
Mm-hmm.
But I said this one's, I like it. It's a different feel to it. And if this is what the Black Label is going to offer us, I think I'm really going to enjoy it. I think they said the first trade to come out under that label is going to be White Knight, and that was another kick-ass Batman story. Well, I'd say it was more of a Joker story than a Batman story, but so I don't know. Should be good. Like I said, if you can get your hands on a copy, not for the Bat-Wang, but for the story, it's a really good story.
Cool.
Speculators drove this one crazy.
Yeah.
That's all there is to that, and it's a shame.
It is.
Yep. It became about
Because
money
they're going
real
to get
fast.
this one issue and not show up for the rest of the series.
Yeah. And I hope that the controversy that was created around the first one doesn't change the story going out, It wasn't like Batman was running around naked. It actually went along with the story. It made sense for him to be naked. He was hurt. He was dying. I mean, who looks at a dying man and goes, uh-huh? You know what I'm saying? It just...
I'm sure there's someone out there.
There are,
Matt.
yeah, there are people for which the dying part doesn't matter. If he's not wearing pants, he's not wearing pants.
True. But like I said, it made sense. It wasn't just a gratuitous shot of his penis,
Well, see, that's what some of the conversations I've been either hearing or seeing in social media is this whole thing going on here. No pun intended. Will this change DC's mind on how they want to handle these stories? It's supposed to be these are supposed to be mature stories for older ages.
Right.
But they're using characters that they also want to market to the younger generation, so they seem to have a problem with what happened in this issue, and so there's concern that editorial from not necessarily editorial, but from higher up, like hierarchy of DC or even Warner Brothers, go, okay, we need to look at this, and then all of a sudden the stories that we thought we were going to get, we're going to get a watered down version.
Yeah.
Or the whole line gets canceled. Period.
Completely. Yep.
Over just 2 panels.
It was 3.
Oh, was it 3? Okay. Whatever.
Yeah. Like I said, I had to go back and look.
Wow.
Well, not like I said, I had heard it was in one of the Batman titles.
Over and over.
Heck, I even had to show Phil. I mean, it was like, can you believe this is creating so much, He's like, whatever. He doesn't get it. But to me, it wasn't a big deal. Like I said, I read the whole story and didn't really...
Woohoo!
I read the whole story and didn't even realize that he was, I mean, I knew he was naked, but you know what I'm saying. I had to go back because I didn't understand what the big deal was.
Oh, God.
I don't know. Has the word penis been said so many times on this podcast?
Actually, that may have been the first time. It's all different versions of the
Right.
slang of the word.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the whole Bat-Wang thing you came up with earlier, and I thought that was clever, but...
It wasn't me. I can't take credit for that.
Oh, man. And, and part of me has to wonder, if it was a girl, would anybody have even said anything? I don't know.
Probably if it was still DC.
Yeah.
Because Image Comics has a lot of female nudity.
Right.
I mean, not every title, but there's been a few titles where you do see female nudity.
Yeah.
And...
Well, and like one of my favorites, Zetascope. you know. I think it was made into a bigger ordeal than it should have been, you know. It's just kind of, I think the whole thing was crazy. It's a good story, and like I said, I would just hate for this to change that story that the original people had envisioned for this, because they offended some people, which probably I would say 7 out of 10 of those people haven't even read the book.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what most outrage comes from, in my opinion, regarding comics. It's coming from people who has not read the book, has no intention to read the book, or just, I mean, it's the mentality that we see a lot of on social media is you read the headline and then you go, oh my God, what the heck are they doing? And they don't even read the article to find out what's going on. And there may be an explanation or something,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just they hadn't read the book. They're not planning on reading the book. Or they weren't planning to read the book in the first place, so this popped up, and then, no pun intended, and...
No, it wasn't popped up, it was dead.
And then they say, I have no intention to read the book, and like, well, you weren't wanting to read it in the first place, so shut up.
Yep. Well, and they forget that comic book isn't the Sunday comic book, or comics that you read in the newspaper. It's a whole different art form in itself, and even those are too. And so the same people who are offended because a comic book showed nudity are the same people who will go and look at art and think that's beautiful. It shouldn't matter the media, you know.
I'm not sure about that, but if for some strange reason our society, and it's primarily this country has a problem with nudity more than it does violence. And boy, are we off topic. We haven't hit topic.
That's true.
Just remember who the original European settlers of this country were. Puritans.
Not so pure,
people who were so uptight that they couldn't get along in Europe. So they had to leave the continent entirely to go somewhere so they could be uptight on their own. So guess what? We haven't shaken that in the last 500 years.
No,
so
we haven't.
There you go. Wow, I really shut that down, didn't I?
No, I mean, I completely agree with you. I just think that people, like, I don't know, they see the human body and it's like, ooh, cover it up. I think in art it can be beautiful. It's not a perverse thing or a sexual thing. It's just, I don't know. You know?
Yeah.
So, Les, what's been going on with you?
I got no way to answer that. How do you follow up something like this discussion?
Move on and do something different. That's how.
That's why I turned to you, man, and you're dropping the ball.
Okay, let's see. As it is the Halloween season, I have picked up my usual reading. That is Something Wicked This Way Comes.
Cool.
And I'm also watching a 3 DV set called Scared Silly. It's 13 classic horror movies. Of course, they are all comedies. And included in this beautiful run is Ghosts on the Loose, which is the Dead End Kids plus Ava Gardner and Bela Lugosi. Manos, The Hands of Fate, which is a definite must-see. And the Roger Corman movie Little Shop of Horrors. it's been a gas to see all of these old movies. This was an item I bought at one of the electronic stores because they had it in either the cheap bin or it was in the bad movie bin. So
there's a difference.
But sometimes there is, yeah. But I'm having a good time with this, so I'm ready for most anything to be discussed. And I do love it. It's great stuff.
Cool.
Cool.
Yeah, I need to watch Little Shop of Horrors again because I don't really remember that movie being a comedy the first time around, but I don't know. I could be wrong. Maybe it was just such a dark comedy that I didn't notice.
I think that's exactly it, Mike. It is a dark one, and therefore it's not always seen as a funny movie, but there are some very funny scenes.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it.
And of course, that's what they did with the remake, was make it a funny movie.
Right, which kind of ruined it,
turned
honestly.
it up. I think that was actually the first one I saw, was the remake. Yeah.
Honestly, my problem with it was not that they tried to crank the funny up to 11. It was that they made it a musical.
Yeah. I don't do well with musicals either.
Well, I was looking forward to it because I saw it when it was off Broadway and dragged Gina to this. She was wondering what the hell we were going to go see, but she stuck with it, and I'm glad she did because I think she enjoyed the music and just the fact that it was an amusing film, or not a film, but a play in one of the smaller venues. So I was pleased.
Neat.
It is neat.
Okay. Been catching up on books, but I do want to take a few moments to acknowledge that we had the season debut of Doctor Who and the new Doctor. And I enjoyed the heck out of it. I think Jodie Whittaker is going to be a great Doctor. I enjoyed watching her. The chemistry she has with the other actors who are going to be her three companions was really good. I thought the writing's really good. I think this is going to be a fun season. We'll see how long she stays as a Doctor, because it's normally, about 3 or 4 series before we have a change. Hopefully it'll be a little bit longer, but I like what I saw. The season premiere was really, really good. So if you've not had a chance to go see it, I think you could. I'm sure it's streaming through whatever service you have, and I'm sure BBC America has it, or BBC has it on their streaming service, whether it's online or through your provider. But definitely check it out. I enjoyed the heck out of it.
It was a fun watch, and I was very pleased with how they handled it.
And the thing that, because this was about an hour and a half or hour and 40-minute episode, and I love the whole running gag of people asking her who she is, and she's just like, I know who I am. I it's at the tip of my tongue. You just wait for the entire episode for her to go, I am the Doctor, and she finally does it right at the end, because all the stress and the situation made her finally remember that she calls herself the Doctor. And I thought that was a nice little scene, but I chuckled a lot. It looks like it's going to be an interesting version of the Doctor. And of course we have the new showrunner, which I can't remember his name right now. So it's going to be an interesting take all the way around. But I think I have high hopes after seeing the first episode.
Cool. That's what Brandon said. He really enjoyed it too. And then he says, I left it recorded for you in case you wanted to watch it to talk about it on your podcast.
Oh.
Isn't that sweet?
Alrighty. Before we get into this week's topic, which was not Batman Damned, I want to take a couple moments to thank the fine folks at Things from Another World for sponsoring the fellowship. If you go to our website, www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, and click on our sponsors link, you'll see the current sales they are running, which right now are their evergreen deals, but they're still pretty awesome. But keep checking the website because we're getting closer to Christmas, and so there's going to be, I'm sure we'll have some Black Friday sales or Thanksgiving sales coming up here in the not too distant future. But the deals they got right now: 40% off on comic statues, toys, and merchandise, 30% off select pre-order manga titles, and 50% off Nick and Dent comics. When you're looking at our sponsors page, you'll see some links there. If you click on that or click on the banner for Things from Another World, that'll take you to their website and let them know that we sent you their way, and have some fun. Thank you again, Things from Another World, for sponsoring the fellowship. Alrighty, we are continuing our somewhat humorous take of horror movie month, and this one, I think I'm not going on a limb, is a favorite of everybody's here. It's a film that came out in 1974, and it almost didn't get made from some of the research I did, which it's kind of scary. But I am talking about Mel Brooks and Gene Wilder's Young Frankenstein. Such a great little film. But I'm going to let someone else kind of start us off. So who would like to go first?
Okay, not all at once. Let's see. 1974. I was trying to think of some other films that came out at that time. Mel Brooks had already established himself with the 12 Chairs and the producers. When he decided to spoof horror movies, he did it in such a fine way, because watching it now, there are some jokes that are a little dated, but the majority of Brooks' movies were pretty timeless. So this one had gags, every minute and a half, maybe, either a sight gag or a joke, and it was very effective. I think it's one of Brooks' best. Unlike Blazing Saddles, it didn't go out on a limb to do a finish for the film. That's not to say Blazing Saddles is all bad. There's nothing wrong about sitting down and listening to Frankie Lane sing the title song as the credits begin. But this one, with his collaboration of Wilder, I think was one of the strongest humor horror movies that's been done so far. I want to say that this is a movie that I would probably sit down and watch repeatedly for a full month, say the month of October.
Just to pull a
And
month out of the hat, right?
Yeah, but that's 31 days, kids. I mean, I could have said February, and that was only 28. But no, I was really happy with this. I think it's held up well, and I think it's one of the finest ones out there at this time. Back to you, Jim.
Yeah. It's a pretty good one.
Fly ball caught.
Yep.
Thanks for stepping way out there, pal.
I want to say I read somewhere that Mel Brooks even has made comments to the effect that he thinks this is his best movie. And that's saying something.
And the thing is he didn't want to do it originally.
Right, it was Gene Wilder's idea from the beginning.
Yeah.
And Mel had to be talked into it, and then basically had to co-write it. But, I'd say that worked out pretty well.
Mm-hmm. I think so.
Really good. It's another one that's a good, clean family movie if you wanted it to be, The jokes that were made were enough to go over smaller audiences' heads, but,
Until the very end, anyway.
But, yeah. I like Gene Wilder, though.
Yep, and he did the overacting thing brilliantly in this movie.
He did.
Oh my God. It's one of the things I think that makes this movie work as well as it did is it's honestly, it's a lot like watching Blazing Saddles if absolutely nobody reacts to anything. All the gags are there, and there's a lot. I don't want to say they're the same gags, but they're kind of the same style of gags. Honestly, they started writing this movie while they were finishing up production on Blazing Saddles, so it's pretty much the exact same time frame.
Right.
So there's a lot of similarities there, but the on-set reactions to the jokes are just so different. And I kind of attribute that to Wilder kind of overacting the straight man role. And he's just, his whole purpose in this movie is to just ham up the straight man thing so much that it's just, it makes the timing very different, but it just works so beautifully. The people around him throwing lines at him, throwing the gags at him, and he just stares at them. And what's funny is the DVD version of it I have has a little documentary about it, and they show scenes from the shooting where he was talking about it would take them several takes to do stuff because he couldn't keep a straight face. And I'm like, man, and honestly, I don't know how he did it even once. Keep a straight face in some of those scenes. It just blows my mind. But yeah, so clearly that was something that that's what he was going for. He wanted to do it basically deadpan, and it just works. It just worked.
Yeah.
Yeah, he really does make the movie. It's a well-written script and all that, but it's just his reactions to the things that are being said to him and what's going on and all that. It's just, it's perfect. The scene where they're discussing the body, and Inga's talking about, or Terry Garr's character, which I can't remember her name right now, was talking about the size of hands and all that kind of stuff. And then she makes that comment, and he goes, well, that kind of, first of all, there's a pause and kind of a stare off into space, and goes, well, that goes without saying.
Right. It's like the perfect deadpan response to the big dick joke.
Yes.
I don't know what a Schwanstucker really is, but clearly it was a dick joke.
Mm-hmm.
I don't speak German well enough to know, but you kind of don't have to.
No, no, it works the way it was intended. Yeah.
Transcends all language barriers.
Pretty much. It could have been a made-up word. We don't know. It probably was, but boy, you know what she's talking about. Yeah, the performances in this movie are just... I want to say unbelievable, but, I mean, given some of the names involved, it's really not unbelievable that the performances are so good. I mean, Cloris Leachman was nominated for some awards. I don't remember if the Oscar was involved, but she was nominated for this movie for awards. And I mean, given how small her to talk about how small her part was after talking about the Schwanstucker joke feels like I'm cheating, but it was a small role, and she's just amazing. I mean, just an unbelievable effect on the movie as a whole in however few minutes she was in it.
She won a Golden Globe for Best Actress for Motion Picture, Musical, or Comedy.
There you go. That was it.
And then Madeline Kahn won for Best Supporting Actress, Motion Picture.
Right.
So she
both of them had not a whole lot of screen time, but obviously made such a huge impact that on the film
they were
recognized for it.
They were very effective, yes. And we talked about the writing. It was nominated for Golden Globe for Best Comedy Adapted from Another Medium, or that was WGA award. I'm sorry. And then it was actually nominated for an Academy Award for Writing Adapted Screenplay. That's not something you would think of when you see this film. It was a great film, but you didn't think it would be, that it would get an Academy Award nomination. That's pretty, but it was that good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And yes, the cast is just so impressive. I mean, you've already mentioned Madeline Kahn and Cloris Leachman, but we got Kenneth Mars as the inspector, and oh my God, Gene Hackman just in a bit part as the blind man.
Mm-hmm.
A great little sequence of him dealing with Peter Boyle as the monster. And you want to talk about reactions? I mean, Peter Boyle as the monster dealing with the blind man who's trying to serve him the meal and then give him a cigar to smoke after dinner.
Not a single word of dialogue from Peter Boyle, and that scene, he makes that scene. I mean, yes, Gene. Yeah. I mean, the interplay between the two, it's just amazing. And I mean, you couldn't have done it with one of them or the other. It had to be both, and it just, yeah. I still crack up. I've seen this movie dozens of times. I still crack up every time he rolls his eyes.
Right
there in that scene. It's just so, oh man, gets me every time.
Well, not only that, but when you, like I said, to talk about doing cigars, and Gene Hackman lights his thumb, and and Peter Boyle pulls up the thumb and just looks at it for like 30 seconds, and then finally starts screaming in agony. It's like it took that long to for the pain go through the nervous system and go, oh, this hurts. It was great.
This movie is a friggin' masterclass in timing, and that's part of it. That scene is a big part of it right there. It's the timing of this film. It couldn't be any better. It just couldn't.
And there is one name that we have not mentioned yet, and I'm surprised we have not mentioned it yet.
Marty Feldman?
Yes. Igor.
What hump?
See, I have a theory. Well, okay, number one, Marty Feldman was a friggin' genius anyway. He was a comedic genius anyway. But one of the things I read about was when Gene Wilder and Mel Brooks were talking about doing this movie, one of Wilder's stipulations was that Mel Brooks not be in it. And so my theory is that Mel Brooks wrote Marty Feldman's character basically to replace himself in the movie. And so he got so many of the gags that he is the source of so many little gags. And I suspect that was on purpose. I suspect that Mel did that essentially to make himself feel better for not being in the movie, or not being allowed to be in the movie. And again, it works.
Yep. Abby something.
In the scene where Frankenstein and his associates locate the secret laboratory and are standing on the platform there, I've always thought that one of the gargoyles on the wall, which appears if you're watching them to the left of where they're standing, looks like Mel Brooks. And it just strikes me as so funny. Every time I see it, I look and I go, that's got to be a cast of Mel Brooks. And as far as Gene Hackman, when this movie first came out, Hackman did not have credits. He did not appear on the credit roll at the end of the movie. There was no listing for the blind man. And I thought that, of course, seeing it at the theater the first time, I was scratching my head thinking he had a major portion, although it was a small role. And you folks are just walking past it. This is an Academy Award winner.
Oh yeah, he was really hot at the time.
Yes. And for him to do a comedy of this nature really stepped away, because I want to say in the late 60s he did French Connection.
Yeah, I was thinking that was like 71 or something like that.
Yeah.
So to me that's proving yourself. And like I said, I don't know whether or not he wanted credit, but he did not have credit for this movie. Now, if you watch it on disc or something, yeah, his name appears.
Yeah, it's on the DVD I have, but it's not in the opening credits. It's only in the closing credits.
Right.
So, Liz, what other thoughts do you have about this film?
Oh, man.
Didn't mean to put you on the spot there.
She's like, what film?
What film?
What are we talking about again?
Wait. Thursday.
No, I really enjoyed it. Like I said, this was another one that seemed like every time this time of year came around, we would watch that. Frankenstein. I liked it because everything I knew up until that point about Frankenstein, it kind of went against the rules. Being that young, you don't realize what a spoof is. But I think nowadays we've kind of lost how to do a proper spoof the way that this one was done. Does that make sense? It seemed to flow
That's
better.
a good term.
then I guess nowadays it's so in your face. Here's what, almost spell it out for you, what we're making fun of. And this one just kind of, you got it, or if you,
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree. It's like when they spoof movies today, it's like they're aiming for that PG-13 audience.
Yeah.
And like this Young Frankenstein is clearly not aimed. It's aimed at people who remember the films that they're actually spoofing, which were from 40 years beforehand.
Yeah.
It's aimed at people who remember watching those movies, who grew up watching those movies. So it's definitely aimed at adults. So and they do that. I mean, we talked about it already. They do that without a constant barrage of dick and fart jokes.
Right.
Even Mel
But
Brooks
they're
can write a
peppered.
movie without dick and fart jokes. There's a couple, sure.
Yeah.
There's some questionable stuff. Marty Feldman. There's some. I hesitate to use the word racy jokes, but they're definitely grown-up jokes.
Yeah.
He's clearly lusting after Madeline Kahn's character.
Yeah. Which is kind of surprising that we were allowed to watch it as kids. But, my parents showed me Blazing Saddles, too. So,
Right.
Right, they knew what good movies were, so, yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely a classic.
Oh, yeah. One of the... You find those lists of the greatest comedies of all time online. There's a bajillion of them, and a lot of them are going to have this movie, for sure.
Yeah. But I think this is another one that has a good rating on Rotten Tomatoes and stuff, too. Which sometimes the older movies don't.
Right.
But I think it's kind of one of those that transcends the time period, to where you can still enjoy it today and not be like, oh, this is an old movie.
Yeah, and honestly, as we're talking about research, the whole this movie being in black and white was apparently a big thing. There was a big to-do about that when they were trying to get it made. The studio didn't like the idea of doing it.
Yeah,
in
and
black
didn't
and white.
they tell him as he's walking out the door after it was like, yeah, do it. And he's like, oh, and by the way.
That sounds familiar. It wasn't in the thing I watched on the DVD, but I remember hearing that somewhere. That does sound familiar.
Yeah.
In something else. I want to say Mel Brooks told that story. Probably,
Yeah.
Maybe in the documentary he did about him. I don't think he made the documentary, but he was in it. This came out, I can't remember what it's called, but it came out 2 or 3 years ago, and it was actually really good.
I think that was in one of the articles I read. And it also said that he asked Gene Wilder how much money he had to make this movie. And he says, how much money you got in your pocket? And he said, $57. And he says, all right. It's a down payment. But yeah, to put these two together, it was just brilliance. Like I said, it'll definitely always be one of the best.
Yeah, and you talked about the ratings for Rotten Tomatoes. It's 93% fresh.
Mm-hmm.
Based on 56 reviews.
Only 56 reviews?
Well, as of whenever this has been updated, so.
Wow. But then again, I kind of don't think of older movies when I think of Rotten Tomatoes, so.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought to go there for a rating for a 40-year-old movie.
Right.
But maybe I'm weird.
And it was a successful film because it was made on according to this, it was $2.78 million budget and grossed $86.2 million.
Mm-hmm.
I'd call that a success, yeah.
I think that's a success.
Because this was also during Godfather Part 2 and The Towering Inferno, which was two big blockbusters. So that was, definitely stood up.
Mm-hmm.
And also digging around, I found out when Igor tells them walk this way, and they shuffle off like he is,
Yeah.
that inspired an Aerosmith song, "Walk This Way." He found it funny and had to repurpose it into his music. So.
See, another thing that's funny is that Wilder didn't actually want to put that gag in the movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Mel had to talk him into it.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
It is.
he just didn't think it fit. And Mel was like, dude, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to fit. Trust me, it'll work.
Yeah. It's one of the funniest parts, too. Yep.
Yeah. And honestly, that's a, yeah, I mean, you see references to that everywhere. That's a commonly referenced thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know that we were having difficulty figuring out something that was not consistent or caused a head scratch or something. But I do believe that there was nothing in this that would cause a head scratch or that's not possible type situation. The scenes, I think, were very smooth. I think the scenes were extremely tight, as in getting the information out there, getting the gags out there, yet nobody had to do a stretch like we saw with Blazing Saddles or Monty Python and the Holy Grail. So I'm like you folks, I was extremely pleased with what was presented and very happy that it came about, because it is to me one of Brooks' strongest films.
Mm-hmm.
And it's lasted 40 years so far. It will be considered one of the top comedies, if it's not already, and will be immortalized somehow just because of that.
Yep.
Yeah, see, talking about the spoof thing, today it's like impossible to find a spoof that isn't just, and I'm probably being a little judgy here, that isn't just loaded with the haha, this is stupid type jokes.
Mm-hmm.
There's none of that here. This is a spoof of Universal horror movies. I mean, the Frankenstein ones in particular, obviously.
Right.
But it is a very respectful.
Mm-hmm.
There's no making fun of those movies here at all. This is funny on its own.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need any of that. Because let's be realistic. Some of those horror movies in that time frame, some of those Universal horror movies, especially when you get kind of deep down into the sequel category, they're not the best movies. It would be real easy to make fun of especially some of those later Frankenstein movies, but this movie doesn't have to do that.
Mm-mm.
It never had to do that, and it's more. I mean, it really feels more like a celebration of those movies than a mockery, for sure. To me, anyway.
For sure. It was more of a spoof of the genre than a movie in particular. So most of them today, like you said, it points at them and laughs at them, and
Yeah, haha, that's dumb.
Yeah.
This movie doesn't do that.
Yeah.
Not at all. And I think that helps with the staying power. That helps make it still be funny 40 some odd years later.
Yeah. And it was a good story. A lot of the spoofs, it's just for the laugh and not for a good story,
Right.
there's a plot going on, but kind of not.
Well, and I mean, even with this, the plot is not that different from some of those sequels.
Yep.
But it's not. It's still not making fun of those sequels.
Mm-mm.
It's more like a kind of a slightly different take on it. And then you've got the gags to go with it. I mean, the same kind of movie today would be just a 90-minute string of stupid jokes, some of which would be taking shots at whatever it was spoofing, which Young Frankenstein doesn't have to do.
Right.
It never had to. It's a good enough movie on its own, and then it's also hilarious, which is kind of nice to watch for a change, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is.
It is a true genius movie. I don't use that term, genius, all that often. But this one was, because it hit on all cylinders. It paid homage to the predecessors, just like you were saying, Mike. And by doing so, it was reverent. But it took the glaring problems with those Universal monster movies and twisted them just enough to make it a humorous situation.
Yeah.
The revitalization of the monster still cracks me up. The scene with the mind transfer between Frankenstein and the monster still cracks me up, especially when the one machine is still sparking, and as Igor walks by, hits it with his palm, and it stops. That sends me into hysterics.
That's a good one.
Yep.
This movie also has lines that are repeated as the audience is walking out. Things that things that were said that made them laugh. So, to me, it succeeded there.
Mm-hmm.
Damn your eyes! Too late.
There you go.
That one
You
got
can
used
just-
a lot near the end.
Yeah.
There are just so many things that can be said and said again.
Yep, it's a very quotable movie, but I think Mel Brooks tends to do that. He's really good with the one-liners, and that's where you get a lot of your good quotables from, is from one-liners.
Oh yeah, you can almost look at any of his movies and get 2 or 3 good quotes to take with you and store away in your mind to quote at a different time.
Oh geez, you'll get 2 or 3 out of a bad Mel Brooks movie. I mean, come on. You get one like Blazing Saddles going, and oh lord, you can find 25 or 30 of them.
The only movie right now that I can think of that really doesn't cause that is Life Stinks.
Yeah, that was a different kind of Mel Brooks movie right there.
Yep.
I believe so too.
That was not a, and it's not the only one like that. Honestly, the 12 Chairs was a lot like that too. It's funny, but it's not ha-ha funny. It's more situational comedy than anything else, I think in both cases. And there were others that were like that too, but those two stand out to me as being movies that I've seen them, but I'm not sure I feel the need to see them again. because I wasn't laughing much during those movies.
Okay.
That's not to say they weren't good.
No, I know that.
They're just
You're
kind
not
of
degrading it.
right, but they're just kind of not the same kind of comedy. They're not what you necessarily actually expect from a Mel Brooks movie.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Just final thoughts before we wrap things up and take a quick break. Other than if you've not seen this movie, I think I'm not really going out on a limb here saying watch it.
Yeah.
I think we are all in agreement on that. This is a great movie. It's a great comedy. It's a great movie.
And it is on Amazon with your Star subscription.
I'm just hoping that we didn't spoil it for anybody. We apologize, but where the hell were you?
You just made a yummy sound.
That wasn't me.
Alrighty, with that, we'll take a quick break and come back with our weekly picks. And we're back. It is time for our weekly picks. And leading off is Liz.
All right. For my first pick, it's coming out of Vertigo. It's Lucifer #1. This is actually the third solo series Lucifer's had since Sandman. And this time, instead of God missing, Lucifer's missing. So, I guess this will be about his imprisonment, and we'll find out who is keeping him prisoner. But
Waldo.
yeah, it's Waldo. But yeah, I'm pretty excited about this one. Like I said, Lucifer, I've always tried to keep up with his. And the last series that they did, it was with Michael, I believe. And they were looking for God. And it was a really good little story. So hopefully this one will be too.
He's in a hospital in New Jersey.
Wow.
Little Dogma reference there, boys and girls.
Yeah. See, I got that one.
Yeah, I got it too. I was going to ask Les to see if he got the reference.
I was thinking he was looking for Jimmy Hoffa, but okay.
That's another good one.
All right.
Otherwise, I don't know your reference. Sorry.
I think we need to sit Les down and watch Dogma
I was
then.
going to say, that's a pity. I would think you would like that movie.
Yeah.
But anyway.
One of the better Ben Affleck ones.
Oh, it's a great Alan Rickman too.
Oh, God, yes.
He was so perfect in that.
Makes that movie.
Yeah.
Man, yeah. Anyway, Lucifer, yeah, cool.
Lucifer from Vertigo, #1.
There you go. All right.
Yeah, this is another one from the Sandman universe that they're doing, though. So, pick it up.
Cool.
Woo.
Mikey.
Okie dokie. My first pick is an Image book. I'm going with Gideon Falls #7. This is the start of a new arc. And coincidentally, or probably not, the trade for the first arc is coming out this week as well. So if you have not looked at this book, I highly recommend it. This is honestly one of the books that is keeping me from being excessively sad that Injection and the Black Monday Murders are not running right now. So it's a lot of fun, and on top of that, gosh, I mean, an embarrassment of riches here. This has just been picked up for TV, so it would really be a good idea to check it out. Get in on the ground floor here pretty early, so it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of Image titles are being optioned for movies or TVs. That's really cool news.
They've been knocking it out of the park lately.
Mm-hmm.
That is cool to hear.
Alrighty, I am next, and I'm keeping in the spirit of this month with my first pick, and it's from American mythology, and it's The Three Stooges, Monster and Mayhem. These are brand new stories with the basically the classic trio, Moe, Larry, and Curly. And these have been really, really fun. I've enjoyed the heck out of these, and I don't know if y'all if you out there have been picking these up, but I highly recommend it. American mythology, it's just they've picked up a lot of licensed material that you wouldn't think anyone would be interested in, and they've been doing a great job. So another special featuring the boys, and I can't wait. Can't wait to check it out.
Yep, looks cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of their last ones was done like 2 of their shorts. It was done in black and white, and that was really fun to read.
Yep, that's true. Alrighty, Les, you're next.
Okay, I too am taking on the theme of the month and bringing you Exorcisters. You have twins that are available to retrieve souls. And like they say, they retrieve souls at a reasonable rate. The 2 sisters, Kate and Kate Harrow, first Kate is with a K, second Kate is with a C, are identical twins, but they are different. And that's the question that you will have through by reading this one, because they look to have a dark secret between them. This is from Image Comics, with Ian Boothby being the writer and Giselle Lagasse as the illustrator. So step out there and give this a try.
Yeah, this was on my list just for Giselle's art alone, but I like the premise, and what I've read of the preview, it looks like it might be a really fun series. So I can't wait.
Yep, agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty, Liz, you are up again.
All right. Well, I'm not keeping with that theme, but I'm keeping with the theme of comics that are being made into TV movies.
It's a good theme, too.
Yep, It is. This one will actually go on Netflix. It's Umbrella Academy. I believe this came out in 2008 originally. It was a really good story by Jared Way. And kind of crazy. 47 women who didn't even show signs of being pregnant whatsoever spontaneously have kids. Yeah. And this rich millionaire decides to adopt 7 of these kids because they're have extraordinary powers and really smart and gifted. So they get together, they fight an Eiffel Tower, and then they all kind of go their separate ways on bad terms, and then the rich millionaire dies, and they all have to come back together again. So, like I said, it's a really interesting story. If you haven't read it yet, this is really good, and I think he's doing a second part to the Umbrella Academy that just started.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think I have that one.
It is
I just haven't.
Hotel Oblivion.
Hotel Oblivion. Yep. So, like I said, it's really good. I love the way Jared Way thinks on things, so definitely worth a look at it. Now, since this one is coming out in 2018, of course they've had this out for, like I said, almost 10 years now, but this will feature out-of-print short stories and an expanded sketchbook by Ba, Jean, and Jared Way. So Should be pretty good.
Nice.
Yep, I think you're right.
It's definitely a good story. And that's why I'm curious which Netflix is going to pick up, his newer stuff or the original story of this.
Yes.
So, fingers crossed it's this one.
Alrighty, Mikey.
Okie dokie. My second pick is an IDW book, and I kind of hinted at this earlier when I said I was getting caught up with Real Science Adventures. Well, I lied, because number 4 is coming out this week. Real Science Adventures: The Nicodemus Job. Again, this is a really fun heist story set in 11th century Constantinople. This guy has been contracted to steal something from the Great Library there. And so he has rounded up some kind of old friends. The main guy is kind of a disgraced former public servant type. And so he's got to round up a handful of criminals to help him steal this document that is in like one of the largest libraries in the world, and they don't know where, and they don't really know that much about the layout, and there was a lot of stuff they didn't know about in issue 3. It was pretty fun. It was a fun conversation, just 5 people sitting around a table talking about this thing, and it was very reminiscent of if you've ever played any Dungeons and Dragons or any other kind of role-playing games, having the party sitting around a table talking about the next job that they're going to do, and it's very much got that feel to it, so it's very cool. I mean, clearly these guys are gamers, but that's not news. So yeah, this is issue 4. These things, I think, usually run 5 issues when they do these Real Science Adventures ones. Again, these are the guys who do Atomic Robo. So definitely worth checking out. Fun stuff.
Cool.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Alrighty, I am next, and for my second pick, I'm going with not only a collection, but it's an epic collection. If you've listened to our show before, you know I'm kind of, I don't want to say obsessed, but I am kind of a big fan of these books. And this is from Marvel Comics, and this is the Epic Collection, Doctor Strange, Master of the Mystic Arts. And this actually collects the very first 20 or so issues of Strange Tales, and then the Amazing Spider-Man annual where he crossed over. Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, great stuff. Finally, in a big collection for some of us collectors to get our hands on, and obviously for new readers to get to check out the classics, the tales that was the inspiration for the movie we got a year or two back, and so I can't wait to get my hands on it.
Sounds like fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good choice.
Alrighty, Les.
For my second pick, I'm going back to the old tried and true. Coming from Albatross Funny Books is Spook House 2, number 3. Eric Powell and Lance Inkwell are the writers for this book, and you got Hilary Barta and Lance Inkwell as the illustrators. These are the guys that brought you spooky tales for kids. And I believe that there will be an issue of Spook House available at your comic stores for Halloween. And it's just good, fun reading. Kids will enjoy it. Parents will enjoy it. I know I thoroughly enjoy it. So give this one a try too.
Cool.
Sounds like fun.
Yep. Alrighty, and our honorable mention this week is...
Our honorable mention this week is from Abstract Studios. And we're bringing this one up because we haven't brought it up in a little while. Terry Moore's Strangers in Paradise 25. Issue 7 comes out this week. This is... I read recently that this is intended to be a 10-issue miniseries. So we're getting kind of to the fun part here. In this issue, I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but Kachu is hunting down one of the Parker girls who has kind of gone off on her own and is basically screwing with Kachu, and that's probably a bad idea, but Kachu has to catch up with her first, and so she's going to get derailed a bit in this issue. This is, if you don't have any experience with Strangers in Paradise, this is a really interesting story. I like how this is kind of these characters like a few years down the road from the original series, and they're fun characters to begin with. So I'm having a lot of fun with this, and I'm the guy who hasn't read the original stories, so this is kind of my introduction to them, and I'm really liking it. Of course, I pretty much have loved everything I've read from Terry Moore anyway, so that makes it easy. But this is definitely a checker-outer.
Good choice.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yep. Alrighty. Any special shout-outs or mentions this week?
Not me.
No. Other
Nothing
than
here.
the passing of Scott Wilson, that was pretty sad. And it made it even sadder is that he just finished wrapping up his scenes for The Walking Dead. So if you're watching the new season of The Walking Dead, you'll see him in there for his last performances. So definitely a great actor.
Yeah, our thoughts and well wishes, condolences go to his family and loved ones and friends.
Absolutely.
Any other special mentions? I guess not, since everybody else chimed up. Alrighty, go to our regular shout-outs. Obviously, the first one we go to is Manny the Martyr for supplying the music for our podcast. Definitely check out their music. We'll have a link in the show notes. Thank you guys for your support. Second, the fine folks of Podern Family on Twitter for spreading the word of the fellowship. Appreciate your support. We definitely recommend you check out their work, and the best way to do that is go to Twitter and do a search, #Podern Family, and just scroll down. And if you find two or three episodes that kind of pique your interest, click on that link, download that episode, and check it out. And who knows, you're going to be listening to a lot more podcasts, and that's a good thing. So thank you guys for your support. And finally, you, dear listener, thank you for downloading and checking us out today. We do appreciate that. We do value your feedback. If you have a comment, suggestion, complaint, observation, question, whatever, we'd love to hear from you. And there are several ways you can do that. email at thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, or you can go to the website and click on the About Us page, and there's a contact form that you can fill out there. We'll get your message. You can contact us through social media, and we invite you to follow us. On Facebook, we are the Fellowship of the Geeks, and on Twitter, we are at Fellowship Geeks. If you would like to follow our personal accounts, please feel free. Mike can be found at Mikey Geek. Liz can be found at Newman_L, and I can be found at Tom TC Geek. And don't worry about following us on Google Plus, because that's going away. So, oh well.
Wow.
Not that we've been posting there for a long time. I kind of like Google Plus when I first came across it a couple years ago, and was really hoping it would take off and people would migrate over, but it just didn't catch people's attention, and they didn't really do much with it. So,
Right.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of sad. I think it would have been a nice platform, because it was doing things that some of the other ones are doing now, is like, especially where you can set up lists of friends and families and then followers and acquaintances, so you can be able to see stuff through different ways. And I kind of liked that. But oh well. It's unfortunate, but
Yep.
Yeah.
so. And wherever you download our episodes, whether it's through iTunes, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Spotify, or YouTube, if you could please rate us, and if you have a couple extra moments to spare, a review would be awesome as well. Any final thoughts before we say goodbye?
Just thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Appreciate you listening. Hope to speak with you next time.
Thank you for listening once again, everybody. Do appreciate your support. And until next time, read more comics and support your local stores.
We thank you for listening to the show. Comments, suggestions, and questions can be sent to email at thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can follow us on Facebook at The Fellowship of the Geeks, and on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. Until next time,